There was also a lot of activity last night at Annie Guthrie's house. If you were following me, I was posting a lot on YouTube stories and on TikTok because I was out there late last night. Basically, we got word that there were these 3 deputies that showed up to Annie Guthrie's house. We didn't know, at first I didn't know if they were like FBI or deputies, but when they left, I was able to look and see they had like a deputy logo on their side. They were there for 3 hours. There were three of them, from what I could count. They showed up, they went inside, and they had some equipment that they brought inside, and then we could see flashes from inside. We could see light flashes, which they were taking pictures inside. It was pretty obvious. At first, they were just taking pictures near the garage area. I could see through the windows, but then I was watching, and you could see they were moving throughout the house. They were taking pictures in different parts of the house. They were there for about 3 hours. They had blue gloves on, I noticed, when they came out. And after being there for 3 hours, came out, got in the cars, didn't say a word, and then slowly drove off. So the timing is interesting because, remember, this was happening around the same time that, or a little bit after that, Savannah Guthrie had put her video out, saying that they would be willing to pay. And I can read, you've probably seen the video by now, but what she said was, I wrote down the verbatim. She said, "We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us and we will pay."
You have to grasp who Savannah Guthrie truly is before processing these revelations. We are talking about a professional communicator by trade, a law school graduate who has led national coverage during heated elections, landmark judicial decisions, and worldwide catastrophes without ever cracking under the studio lights. Yet since her mom disappeared, she's been silent.
Nothing.
Not for lack of words, but because her private theories are too explosive to share before the police confirm them. This footage reveals the heavy burden of her hidden knowledge. On that fateful night of January 31st, 2026, we all saw a seasoned anchor transform back into a grieving child. She walked away from her prime spot on the nation's top morning show. She even turned down the 2026 Winter Games in Milan. Swapping teleprompters for raw social media clips, she stayed home. In a tearful plea, she held her siblings close and begged for her mother's release. "We are searching every corner of the world for you, Mom. We won't stop. Your kids will never give up the hunt." The world witnessed that side of the story.
Savannah
a portrait
in grief,
of sorrow,
Savannah in desperation,
and a daughter's
Savannah
sheer
at an
desperation.
84-year-old.
We saw her laying yellow blossoms at an 84-year-old's vigil while the nation looked on. But what remained hidden from the cameras and press releases, and what no caption could ever capture, is the real Savannah behind the scenes. She's the high achiever with the Ivy League legal degree. Inner circles say that during those early days of the probe, her behavior was notable. Forget grief or fear. What they saw was pure, unadulterated rage. She was especially incensed by where people were looking and how the narrative was being steered. Her anger wasn't aimed at the cops or the world at large. It was targeted at one very particular story about one very particular individual. Grasping why Savannah is shielding certain people while leaving others exposed is the vital piece that makes sense of these 7 major points we are dissecting right now. Pro detectives realize that when a crime happens within a tight-knit circle, things work differently. The inner circle is usually sitting on secrets they haven't shared yet. It's not always about being a criminal. They aren't necessarily trying to hide a smoking gun. Rather, knowing something truly horrific about someone you care for is hard to process. It doesn't just come out. It festers and lingers under the surface. It leaks through subtle cues, body language and chosen silences, and the level of specific warmth. You offer one person at a funeral versus the cold shoulder you give someone else. Savannah has been telegraphing these feelings for 7 weeks now, and we're starting to decode those signals with point number 1. Late on January 31st, 2026, 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, who struggled with heart issues and mobility, hailed a ride to her daughter Annie's place up in the Catalina foothills of Tucson. She pulled up around
approximately
5:32
p.m. in
for
the
what
afternoon
seemed like
for
a
what
typical
was,
weekend
by all
family meal
accounts,
and some
a
games.
normal
The sort of night that keeps a family connected.
Annie
Annie is
Guthrie
the oldest
of
sibling,
Nancy's 3
followed by
children.
Savannah
is the middle.
And then there is Cameron, the baby of the family.
Because
this family
birth
tree is
defines
crucial
guilt,
because
but because
it
it
dictates
defines
who had the
access.
most
Annie
opportunity.
is the
Since Annie lives locally, her house was Nancy's home away from home, serving as the backdrop for the final night Nancy was seen alive. Annie was the one tracking her mother's schedule and timing that night, fully aware that when the party broke up, Nancy would head 4 miles back to an empty house, vulnerable and solo with her medical issues, with nobody checking in until the following morning's service. That specific, up to the minute. Intelligence on Nancy's whereabouts and her exposure is exactly what allowed this kidnapping to happen. This wasn't a lucky guess. It was inside information. The police definitely handled the situation with that in mind. Right from the start of the hunt, detectives didn't just knock on Annie's neighbors' doors once. They returned repeatedly, hitting the same pavement and the same houses over and over, grilling the same folks about those specific hours. Former agent Jennifer Coffindaffer pointed out that a double canvas is usually a red flag. A thorough initial sweep shouldn't need a second look unless a lead developed or fresh evidence forced the team to circle back to that exact spot. It wasn't just that they had nowhere else to turn. The scent of the trail kept pulling them back to that specific spot. Agencies drowning in high-pressure cases don't waste time circling one single residential street unless a concrete lead is forcing them to return. They don't burn through manpower or hours or coordinate multiple departments for repeat sweeps of one block unless the evidence demands it. Every single visit was triggered by a fresh piece of info. A tip that pointed repeatedly toward that one house.
To the same address.
Savannah gets the gravity.
Savannah knows what that.
She's a law graduate. She knows exactly what it implies when federal agents keep hitting the same address with the same questions. She can see the logic behind it. She realizes investigators don't just loiter on the same corner for fun.
By accident.
Yet, she hasn't uttered a word. Not a single comment on the police swarming her sister's neighborhood. Not one peep about what the feds might have uncovered there. That total silence is our first major red flag. If you've been following this deep dive and want the full story on how Tommaso Cion first became a suspect, that specific video is linked on your screen right now. Give it a watch
it alongside
because those details are the
because
foundation for
in
everything we're discussing today. Here is our second crucial detail. This question has sat at the heart of the mystery since day one, yet the media almost never brings it up. When the meal wrapped up at Annie's house on the night of January 31st, after the games were finished and Nancy needed to head home,
when the game
why
night
didn't
was
Annie give her mother a lift? Annie was right there. It's her own home.
Annie lives in that house.
The trip is only 4 miles.
The drive is 4 miles.
Nancy is 84 and struggling with a weak heart. By any normal standard of family dynamics, the eldest daughter would be the one driving her elderly mom. But that isn't what happened. Tommaso took the wheel. Tommaso Cion, Annie's husband and Nancy's son-in-law, was the one who put her in the car, drove those 4 miles to Nancy's place, entered the garage, and walked her inside. That door went up at 9:48 p.m. and then closed at 9:50 p.m. That was the final time anyone outside that family circle ever saw Nancy Guthrie. There are plenty of innocent ways to explain that choice. Maybe Tommaso offered because Annie was completely drained. Maybe it was just the path of least resistance. Those stories might hold water, but detectives aren't paid to accept the easy answer without testing the tactical one. And here is the tactical problem. What does it achieve to make Tommaso, and not Annie, the last person to see Nancy alive? It ensures the chain of last contact goes through him, bypassing her entirely. It places the man who knows the exact entry point, who knows the drive by heart, and who saw her final transition into total isolation as the son-in-law, not the daughter. If the nightmare that happened 4 hours later was actually planned in advance, deciding who drove Nancy home isn't just some minor family chore. It's a calculated architectural move. One that puts Tommaso at the final handoff and keeps Annie out of the frame. Now for point number 3. And this one looks worse with every passing week. Right at the start of February 2026, journalist Ashley Banfield sourced a police contact stating a vehicle from the Guthrie house, which she linked specifically to Tommaso Cion, was hauled off and booked into evidence. The authorities in Puma County eventually put out a brief clearing the Guthries of suspicion, yet they kept the vehicle. The car stayed locked up. Fast forward to mid-March 2026, over 6 weeks since Nancy vanished, and that car still isn't home. A former SWAT leader openly asked what the holdup was. They are officially no longer considered suspects. The press release was final. It called them victims, plain and simple.
Why
So
does
why are
Clear
the
family
police
still not have
still
their car?
holding on to their
Sheriff Nanos gave a
property?
partial.
Sheriff Nanos touched on this slightly during an interview with People magazine.
What
he went over the depth of
investigators
their
did
search
with the
into the
family's
family's
property.
things,
He said,
saying they did
"We
interviews,
talked to them.
seized mobiles, took laptops, and went through their cars.
We
Even their
processed
houses
their
were
homes.
searched. They are victims. Yet everything, phones, computers, vehicles, was processed, meaning a total forensic deep dive. Data pulling and scanning,
Analysis,
checking against
comparison
known
against known
clues,
evidence,
location
GPS
history, and tower pings,
cell phone,
movement records, and trace materials.
to place a
Basically,
person
any
or
physical
object in a
evidence that
specific
ties a
location
person
at a
to a
specific
spot
time.
at a certain time. 6 weeks later, that car is still gone. That is more than just slow paperwork. Taking
delay.
6
A
weeks
forensic
to
process
scan
takes
a
6 weeks on
car
vehicle.
for a family that is supposedly cleared means they found a thread they are still pulling on.
Something
When
still being
gear
used in
like
an active
phones
investigative
gets
thread.
returned,
When phones
it usually means the job is done and they got what they needed.
Yielded
Keeping a vehicle
what
for
it
a month
needed.
and a half
When a vehicle is
suggests
processed
the
and
exact
returned after
opposite.
6
Something in that car, or the data it holds, is still serving a purpose for the cops. Something in. There is a live lead, vital to the case, and too risky to return.
Detail
Point
number 4. On
February
February
4th,
2026,
3
3
days after
Nancy
Nancy
was
vanished,
reported.
TMZ leaked footage of investigators swarming Annie and Tommaso's Tucson home. In the
Tommaso's
group
home in
of
Tucson.
agents
Among the
entering
agents
was
entering the
one
property
man,
was a man
with the letters ICAC on his shirt. That is the
ICAC
Task
is the
Force for Internet Crimes
Task Force,
Against
a
Children,
federally
a specialized federal team for high-tech cases.
trained
These agents
in
deal
technology
specifically with online
facilitated
exploitation and coded
encrypted
chats,
digital
and they specialize in pulling data that owners thought was hidden forever.
not
That
intend
agent
anyone
also
else to
had a
ever
tool
read.
experts
The agent was
identified as a
also carrying
Celebrite extraction
what analysts
device. Celebrite is what the law uses to crack into a phone, a tablet,
that
or a
would
SIM
not
card
otherwise
that is
give up its
locked down
contents.
tight.
It bypasses
It shreds through encryption. It brings back deleted texts and data the owner thought was gone for good. You do
Permanently
not
gone.
pull that
You
out
do
at a
not
family
carry it
home
to a family's
unless
home unless
you
you
are
have
looking for a specific piece of tech you are sure is hiding the truth. The
Something
Pima
the
County
investigation
Sheriff's
needs.
Office was very
The Pima
careful
County
with their
Sheriff's
response.
Department
They claimed a logo on a shirt does not necessarily mean a specific crime is being looked at. They
indicative of a
never
particular crime
disputed the
associated with this
agent's
case.
presence.
They did not.
No one denied the hardware was there.
The
They
shirt
argued the
does
clothing
not
didn't
define
prove
the
guilt.
crime.
Former
CIA
intelligence officer Tracy
and
Chandler
FBI
Walter offered
special
a theory.
agent.
Specialized agents focus on
The
the digital
digital
systems used to
architecture
send
used
ransom notes from
to send
burner
ransom
accounts and
demands
hide
from
crypto
burner,
transfers through
emails,
encrypted paths. That handles the money aspect.
the
But it
ransom
doesn't
angle.
explain the
It
forensic
does not
tool.
explain the Celebrite.
That tech
Celebrite
isn't for
is
tracking
not
emails.
for
It is
tracing
for
ransom
pulling
emails.
data from a
It is for
physical device
extracting
that is
data from a
already in
specific
custody.
physical device.
Someone in
Already
that residence
Someone
had a
at that house
device.
That
That tech held info investigators needed, so they brought the right gear to extract it. The contents
What
of
was on
that
that device
device
has not
remain
been
a
made
complete
public.
secret.
6 weeks later.
6 weeks later, nothing is known, and the car is still impounded. Savannah knows the tech's purpose. Savannah knows the car's
about the car.
status and
And
has
Savannah
stayed
has said
completely
nothing.
silent.
If you-
To understand the full financial scope of this investigation
Ransom
and what the
demand
ransom
structure tells us
setup
who planned
reveals
this.
about the
That breakdown is
mastermind, check out the full breakdown in the video linked here. Detail number 5. On the morning of March 2nd, 2026,
2026,
exactly 1 month and 1 day after Nancy
1 month
vanished,
and 1
Savannah
day
Guthrie
after
returned
Nancy
to
was
Tucson. She visited the memorial right outside her mother's residence.
Memorial
Yellow
outside her
petals,
mother's home.
handwritten
Yellow
messages,
flowers,
and
handwritten
candles.
notes.
A neighborhood's heartbreak made visible right by the mailbox. She
Mailbox.
wasn't alone.
She was not alone.
She arrived with her
came
sister,
with her sister
Annie,
Annie
and Annie's
and Annie's
husband, Tommaso. 3 people,
told
and a
a
single
story
clip
no
of footage
press
that tells a
release has
truth
erased.
no PR
Nancy
team
Grace,
can hide.
the former
Nancy Grace, the former prosecutor who has spent years reading grieving families, watched that
and drew a
video and reached a specific conclusion at the
Variety
Austin,
True Crime
Texas Crime
Summit.
Summit. She noted that seeing Savannah put her arm around Tommaso
Convinced her that
that
Savannah does
doesn't
not believe
blame him
Tommaso
for what
is
happened to her
responsible for
mother.
what
Nancy's read feels accurate. Savannah reached out to him.
She
She
pulled
held
him
him close
In a
while
moment she
knowing
knew the
the
world was
cameras
watching.
were
She
rolling. She made that warmth obvious. Nancy Grace concluded, Savannah doesn't suspect him. But here's the
here's
part
detail
Nancy
did
Grace
not
left
finish.
out.
If Savannah does not,
If she doesn't suspect him, who is it? Watch who she holds versus who she keeps at a distance.
does
Look
not
at the
hold with
physical
same ease.
positioning
Watch
of
the
those
physical
3
architecture
people.
of that.
Notice where Savannah stands relative to the sister whose car is still being held,
Sister
whose
whose car is
neighborhood
still
keeps
in evidence,
drawing
whose
federal
neighborhood keeps
agents
drawing
back,
federal-
and whose table was the last known location of Nancy Guthrie. 2 sisters,
Two
31
sisters,
days of grief,
31 days of
standing at
shared
their
grief.
mother's memorial.
Standing at their
Yet the gap between them doesn't look like two people sharing the same pain. It doesn't look like the bond between two daughters processing the same tragedy from the same side of innocence. One, Savannah embraces.
One, Savannah holds.
The other,
one,
she
Savannah
merely
manages.
manages. As a Harvard law graduate, she knew the cameras were there. She has spent her career understanding how images speak and how they're viewed,
and how
making
they
that
are
choice
received.
intentionally. Since February 1st, not a single move Savannah Guthrie made was accidental. Everything was calculated. Every word, every single clip. All her media appearances were meticulously managed by communication pros, following strict strategies from legal experts and police advisors. That memorial service wasn't just a quiet moment of mourning that happened to be filmed. It was a deliberate public statement. Savannah coordinated that entire scene, fully aware of the narrative it would project. Type the word "found" in the comments immediately if you're watching this and praying for Nancy's safe return. Each new comment helps push this footage to a wider audience that needs to see the truth. Insight number 6.
The masked man
The intruder caught on Nancy Guthrie's security lens wasn't just taking a wild guess. He definitely wasn't playing it by ear. Every detective who has reviewed this file has reached the exact same verdict. This was a specific, premeditated, and intel-heavy hit. It was a focused, carefully orchestrated, tactical operation that absolutely required an inside source. Former FBI specialist Brianna Fox analyzed the footage and noted the suspect walks up with the ease of someone entering his own home. Ex-FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe observed that his approach didn't seem particularly cautious or worried about detection. These aren't the movements of a man terrified of being spotted. These are the actions of someone who had already factored in every possible risk. He spotted the camera. He walked up, tested it, and when his attempt to knock it down failed, he grabbed leaves from a nearby porch plant to block the view. He didn't bring any gear. He improvised on the spot, but he clearly knew exactly where that lens was located. He was certain Nancy would be alone. He wasn't prepared to encounter a nurse, a visitor, or even a dog. He targeted one specific individual with the total confidence of someone who knew the house was otherwise empty. He was fully aware of her heart device. Nancy's smartwatch, phone, and vital heart meds were all left at the scene. That wasn't an oversight. It was a calculated move. Someone realized the device was linked to her phone and that taking her without her pills started a lethal biological clock. The heart monitor flatlined at 2:28 in the morning. That silence was part of the plan.
Someone planned for that.
He understood her habits, not just for the night of January 31st, but the entire schedule. Knowing that Saturdays were typically her travel days and the time the family gathered for dinner. The specific times she was vulnerable, which leads us to the most crucial recent update in this investigation. Federal agents are currently scrutinizing January 11th and January 24th as two critical dates for the case. Neighbors informed News Nation that investigators were hunting for security video from both those Saturdays. 2 separate Saturdays. One was 8 days before the kidnapping, and the other was 3 weeks prior.
2 Saturdays.
Both on the same day as those family dinners. The exact same day of the week that Nancy was eventually taken. The stalker was monitoring this family every Saturday, mapping out a routine that only someone deep within their social circle would ever have a reason to track. That specific rhythm, her Saturday nights, her rideshare habits, her meals at Annie's place. None of that information was on a social profile or in a news report. It was internal family knowledge. It existed inside the daily life of this family. And the last time that data was gathered, confirmed, and finalized was right at the dinner table in Annie Guthrie's home. The path of what the intruder knew points directly back to that specific house. Every lead on that map returns to that one residence. Insight number 7, February 7th, 2026. 1 week since Nancy was reported missing, Savannah Guthrie was seated between her siblings Annie and Cameron, staring directly into the camera lens. She kicked off the family's recorded plea with a phrase that public media reports have never truly scrutinized. We've got your note and we follow you. 8 words from a woman who studied at Harvard Law. From someone ex-CIA officer Tracy Walder viewed as delivering a tightly scripted video staged with help from police consultants. 8 specific words selected under immense pressure by a team of legal and forensic experts. We've seen your note. Not, we're aware of media reports or messages were sent, but a specific confirmation that a package was received by specific individuals. This matters because only 3 days prior, on February 4th, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe reviewed the first family tape and sensed they were reaching out to someone who hadn't contacted them yet. His tape on February 4th was the family hadn't received any real proof from whoever had their mother. 72 hours later, Savannah said, "We've got your message." Reality changed. A second letter hit Tucson station KOLD on February 7th. The news director said it contained private details the sender used to verify their own identity. It was different in every possible way from that first note. No money was requested. It was only meant to build trust. With Annie and Cameron beside her, Savannah said, "We understand, not we believe or we hope." That verb suggests a total grasp of something deep, something that clicked once you had the right context in a way. A generic ransom note from a stranger never would. Now watch the three of them in the shot when those words are spoken. Savannah reads her script with the cold accuracy of an attorney vetting a document. Cameron shows the visible strain of a man mourning in public for 7 days. But look at Annie. Watch her closely in that second. Savannah states, "We follow you." Watch if that word hits her like fresh information, or if she looks like she's heard it before. Behavioral science calls this a lack of congruence, the mismatch between what a situation demands and what the body is actually doing. In that February 7th clip, 3 siblings deliver a single line, but it doesn't affect them all the same way. Savannah is briefed on the text.
Savannah knows what the message
Cameron
said.
is grieving the reality of
what
it. And Annie is managing something that is neither of those things. 7 facts,
7
all
details,
verified,
all
leading to the exact
all pointing in the same
conclusion.
direction. Not
Not as individual shots, but as a pattern. A pattern that doesn't point to a stranger. A pattern that leads right back every single time to a Tucson dinner table where an 84-year-old woman spent her last night with her relatives. That is how patterns work in criminal investigations. You can rationalize any single piece of evidence. An impounded car, maybe processing just takes a while.
An ICAC
A federal agent at the door.
The shirt.
A shirt is just a shirt. Police returning to the block is just standard procedure. A daughter who doesn't give her own mother a ride home. That's simply how the night concluded. Every tiny detail seems perfectly innocent when viewed alone. Every
single one.
Yet
But
7 harmless facts, all
innocent.
pointing toward the same
Explanations,
conclusion, all centering on one specific family, all creating a clear profile of a woman who knows the truth and is hiding it with the poise of someone trained in law and news media. We are no longer looking at a string of random flukes. This is a pattern, and patterns are exactly what criminal cases are built upon. Hit subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell. We are dropping fresh updates on this case as it unfolds. Our next segment goes deep into the Bureau's January tracking logs. Now, let us focus on the individual in the mask. Because the search for what Savannah knows leads to a major question of identity, focusing not on the planner, but the person who did the job. And the solution keeps leading back to the social circle of the home we have been watching. The federal suspect description: a 5'9" to 5'10" male. Average frame, face cover, dark coat, pants, gloves, a black 25-liter Ozark trail pack from Walmart. Detectives worked with the store to find it, noting a handgun sat poorly in its holster. Former Bureau veteran Steve Moore noted the weapon and holster were a bad match. A compact pistol tucked into a carrier made for a massive revolver. Retired. Homicide investigator Dale Lundberg called that holster a very rare find in his career. He noted that usually only cops or frequent shooters use holsters on a regular basis. Not a street thug, not a professional thief. Someone who wears a gun because it is how he sees himself. A statement of identity. Put that description into the world of Annie and Tommaso Chione's home. Tommaso fronts a Tucson rock group called Early Black. His drummer, a man named Dominic Evans, is a fit elementary school teacher, bearded, living in Tucson, sharing a band, a city, and a long history with the person who drove Nancy Guthrie home her last night. When the feds put out the porch camera video, the internet claimed Evans looked exactly like the person of interest. Within a few hours, Evans gave a statement to the Times. He admitted to a 40-minute talk with federal and local police. He claimed he was home when Nancy vanished, saying he felt his name was being stolen.
Someone
He
had
hasn't
taken
been
his name.
charged or
He has not been
named as a
charged. He is not named
suspect,
as a suspect.
but the feds still grilled a local musician because he fit the physical profile.
His
That
profile matched
man
the suspect.
is
That man
tied
checks
to
everything.
everything. The same group, the same city, and years alongside Tommaso Cian.
Woman who
Cian's
hosted
spouse
the
was the
last
host of the
dinner of
very
Nancy
last meal
Guthrie's
Nancy
free
Guthrie
life.
had as a free person. If Savannah thinks Tommaso is innocent, and her behavior at the service says she does, then the issue isn't whether Tommaso is guilty. The issue is if someone in his circle had the data to plot this, whether
used to
someone
build
moving
this
through
plan.
the Cian's
Whether
private
someone who moved
world,
through the
an old pal, maybe a musician colleague,
stage
someone who
or a
hung
dressing
out
room or a social
backstage
gathering,
or shared a drink
absorbed
at a
enough
party,
operational
picked up enough bits of Nancy Guthrie's routine to sketch a blueprint. This isn't
is
just
a very
any
specific
inquiry.
question.
It's
And
a
it is a
riddle
question
federal agents are
that
unraveling
the
from
FBI
within.
has been
They aren't looking for some random boogeyman, but
abstract,
searching for a
but
culprit
asking
among the
who,
acquaintances
within the known
and
social or
co-workers
professional
of
network.
the Kiss residents who was close enough to learn what this intruder evidently knew.
Clearly
You won't
had
find the key to
gathered.
this mystery
The answer
in
to that
some
question does
nationwide
not live
police
in a
file.
national.
It's tucked away in a local circle, a specific town's unique neighborhood.
Specific
This
city,
circle
and that
constantly
community keeps
overlaps with
intersecting
the
with
local
early sun,
underground
black,
and
with
the music world of Tucson, right near Annie and Tommaso Cioni's place. This
the masked
assailant
man
wasn't a
came
stranger.
From somewhere.
He held
He knew
secrets only a
things that
family
only
insider
people
would
close
possess.
to-
Detectives find themselves circling back to the same block, the same house,
the same household,
and the web
and
of
the same
people
network
tied
of relationships.
to it. It's not for a lack of options. It's that every trail they follow eventually loops back. Well,
About
let's
what the
look at the
investigation
actual
has actually
progress
built
made
since
since
February
February
1st.
1st. DNA samples were pulled from Nancy Guthrie's private residence. The
Belong to Nancy
results
or
don't
to
point
anyone
to
in close
Nancy
contact with her.
or
CODIS,
her inner
the
circle.
FBI's
CODIS, containing over 19 million entries of known offenders, came up empty.
The
This
contributor has
individual
no
hasn't been
prior
booked for a
violent
violent
felony arrest,
crime or
no
tagged
prior
in any
criminal
system.
profile.
Federal agents are now using genealogical tracing, the
Identified
same
the
tech
Golden
that
State
finally
Killer
caught the Golden
after
State
decades
Killer
of
after
failure by
years of dead
conventional
ends. It scans public family trees using bits of a DNA profile,
Finding
spotting the
relatives of
perpetrator's
the unknown
relatives to trace the
contributor
lineage
and working
back to the
backward
source.
through
A past rap sheet isn't even necessary.
Running
That
now.
search is active.
When it yields a viable
Once it
candidate,
identifies a
when it
likely
narrows
suspect,
the field.
when it trims the search from millions down to a handful, then to one.
Who
The mission
did
shifts
this
from
to building a
identifying the
case
killer
that cannot
to
be
pinning them
challenged
down
in
with
court?
solid proof.
Consider
Think about what that clean DNA profile implies about this person.
Suspect.
No hit in the system
No
means
match
they've
in
never been processed through the
CODIS
courts in a
means
way
this
that
person has
required a
not moved
swab.
through the
The
person who
intruder
left genetic
who left
material
their
inside
mark
Nancy
in
Guthrie's home
during
in a
what
case
police call a calculated, premeditated,
planned
and highly
and
targeted strike
intelligence-driven,
isn't some
does not have the
habitual
criminal
street
record
criminal.
of a
They have the spotless history of an individual who has never been caught. To the world,
someone who, on
they
paper,
look
looks
normal,
ordinary,
living
lives in
among
a
neighbors,
community, has a job.
holding down a job, surrounded by people who trust them. That's
Publicly,
why a former
that
federal
the number
agent
one way
stated that the
this
biggest
case gets
breakthrough
solved
will come
is
from a
someone
tipster,
coming
a relative, or perhaps a girlfriend,
finds
someone
a moral
who chooses
compass
their conscience,
or finds the
or the $1.2 million reward
worth
over
more
a
than
secret.
their
Besides the DNA, there's data from Annie and Tommaso's devices,
Tommaso
location
codes, GPS
history
and
from
movement
the
data from the seized
impounded
vehicle,
car,
thousands of
and endless hours of video being scrutinized by the Quantico tech team, which the FBI calls a vital pillar of this case.
evidence
Plus
team,
that bag
described
found at
by the
Walmart
Bureau
on
as a
January
cornerstone of
11th
the
and
investigation.
24th.
The
2. A pair of
Saturdays on
weekends
which
where a
someone
predator
watched
tracked
this
this household's
family
every
closely
move to
enough
map out a
to
perfect
learn
strike. Federal agents shifted their base of operations from Tucson to Phoenix as February came to a close.
To
This
Phoenix
relocation
in late
mirrors the
February.
current epicenter
The transition
of the
reflects
ongoing
where the
legal
work
effort.
now.
It is no longer about physical searches, but rather crunching data,
Forensics
unearthing electronic
and building a
evidence,
case that
and prepping
holds
a trial-ready
in court.
dossier.
That is not
This is not a step
retreat.
back. It is a probe that has graduated from gathering raw facts to connecting the dots. For 7
Guthrie has
weeks,
been living
Savannah Guthrie
inside
has
a
carried a heavy,
specific and
haunting
terrible
truth
kind
in
of
silence.
knowledge.
A hidden insight born from her legal background,
Boy,
her
being a
experience
journalist,
as a
from
reporter,
understanding the person who took
and the realization that her mother's captor was not some random drifter who stumbled upon them.
Described
Insiders
her
saw her as
livid,
furious,
not grieving,
mourning,
livid,
outraged
over the
over how
targeting of
Tommaso was being
Tommaso.
targeted, frustrated by a storyline she views as skewed, even if Tommaso remains central to the puzzle. Because the
connected from
real
the story,
truth differs
but
from the
because the
rumors
story is
swirling
not
among
the one the
masses.
public is
On February 15th, she shared a new clip stating, "You
Or
aren't
alone.
isolated,
and it is
redemption
never too
is
late
still an
to
option."
do the right thing.
Those aren't just
language
empty
is
words.
not-
You do not tell an unknown perpetrator they are not alone.
It is
That
how
is
you
how you
speak to
talk to a
someone
person
whose
whose
emotional
psyche you
state
actually
you understand.
recognize.
Someone
A soul whose loneliness you can feel because you grasp their motives and their history.
and
Urging
what
someone
drove
to
them
act
to where they are
honorably
now.
is not a message
It
for
is
a
never
random
too late
ghost.
to do the right.
It is a direct appeal to a heart you still think can feel remorse.
Conscience,
Imagine
you
the
believe,
inner
is
strength
reachable.
required to utter
Think
that
about
with
what it
genuine
takes to say
conviction,
that
to face the lens and reassure your mother's abductor that they haven't drifted too far,
Mother,
that they
that's
can
the
still
Underworld.
find
Underworld.
grace.
That's-
That phrasing only works if you trust the listener still possesses a moral compass.
Response.
A person you are
Someone you
convinced
have
still
a
has
basis
some
for
shred
believing,
of humanity
still has a
left to
conscience
touch.
worth-
You would not use such intimate words for a nameless face.
Inspires
Unknown
fear
threats
and
provoke
fury
terror,
and
rage,
law
and a
enforcement
demand for
pressure.
a police
What
crackdown. Savannah extended an olive branch rooted in their common bond, providing an exit strategy. You only
offer a way
suggest a
out to
shortcut to
someone
safety when
whose
you can
path to
visualize
that door
exactly
you can
how
see
they can reach
clearly.
it. Savannah picked that specific phrasing because she is certain
They
will
will
resonate
land
with a
with
listener whose
someone
ties
who
to
can
this
hear them.
tragedy belong to
Someone
her own
whose
inner
connection
circle.
to this-
A life she has shared across a dining table in
on a Saturday
Tucson
evening
on a
in Tucson.
weekend night.
And she stood at a
Then
memorial
she
and
embraced
held
her brother-in-law at the funeral, showing the affection of someone who has already cleared him of any guilt,
is not supposed to
implying
be linked
that
to another,
she
which means
points the finger elsewhere, harbors specific suspicions, or possesses a truth the public hasn't been allowed to hear.
the
7
world has not
verified
yet
facts,
been given permission
each one
to
leading
say
toward
out
the
loud.
same conclusion.
7
A trail of clues that does not lead to some outside intruder.
Not
A
point outward
cycle
toward the
that
stranger. A pattern that
consistently
curves back
returns
every
to
time.
that. Family meal where an 84-year-old woman enjoyed her final night with her kin.
The company
Forensic
of her
samples
family.
are being
The
tested,
DNA is in the
and
lab.
family
The
trees
genealogy
are being
is
mapped.
running.
Phone records are pulled, and the impounded vehicle remains under police scrutiny.
And
Between Savannah's
somewhere
gut
in
feeling and the
gap
hard proof
between
needed
what
for court,
Savannah
the
knows
truth is
and what
solidifying. Where exactly is Nancy Guthrie? She is 84
She is
years
84
old.
years old.
Her heart
A
regulator
pacemaker
went dark
that
at
went
28
dark
minutes
at
past 2 in the
2:28
morning.
in the morning.
Her essential meds were left behind. She cannot walk 50 yards without someone's arm for support.
Cannot
She won't survive in some
an improvised
makeshift
hiding
hideout
place
without professional,
deliberate
dedicated
care.
medical
And yet,
attention. Even so, there is no proof of death, no physical remains, and no evidence of a body. No
evidence
forensic
that
trail
closes the
suggesting
door
she
on
isn't
the
breathing right now,
possibility that
perhaps
she is
held by
alive
someone waiting
right
for a final
now.
payoff. Sheriff Nanos has continued to operate as if she is still alive.
Nanos
During recent
has
press talks,
maintained
he
the
claimed the
living
department is
presumption.
definitely
He
gaining
said in
ground.
recent
From the very start, his gut feelings have remained rock solid and unwavering.
Police what they
7
want,
weeks
but
have
not
gone
finished.
by
After 7 weeks, no.
without a single arrest or named suspect. Yet he says, closer. Consider the weight of that claim. This case is
In
under
a
a
case
massive
this
spotlight,
visible,
tracked
this
by
covered
every
by
major
every
news desk
major
in the
outlet
nation.
in the country.
An official who says his team is gaining ground knows he'll be crucified if that turns out to be a lie.
He
picked
knows will be
that
held against
specific
him if it
word with
proves
extreme
false.
intention.
He chose that word.
That doesn't sound like a leader who has lost confidence in the hunt.
Man
That
who knows
sounds like a
something the
man
press
holding a
conference
secret the
cannot yet
cameras aren't
contain.
allowed to see
The
yet.
U.S.
The southern border is located roughly 60 miles from the heart of Tucson.
Mexican
Federal
law
agents and
enforcement
Mexican
were briefed
police
on
were
this
read into
case
this
from the early
investigation
weeks.
during the opening weeks.
Standard.
It is a standard move for the region, signaling that detectives are seriously considering the
Doubt the
chance that
possibility that
Nancy
Nancy
was
was
moved
transported.
across the line. The search and detention in Rio Rico, carried
On the
out
night
60
the
miles
FBI
south on the night
released
the
the
FBI
doorbell
dropped the
footage,
video, followed that same logic. The person they stopped was released, but the international angle was never officially ruled out. If Nancy Guthrie is still out there, and the way the police are acting suggests they believe so, she is tucked away somewhere,
otherwise.
held by
She is
someone waiting for
somewhere
the
being
perfect time
held
to
by
collect.
someone who believes the
They are monitoring the news, tracking the leads, and watching the bounty increase. What they might not realize
watching
is
the
that the
tips come
DNA
in, watching the
profiling
reward
is already
grow,
in motion.
and what they
The phone data has been pulled, and that vehicle is still sitting in the evidence locker. The
Celebrite data
window
has
of
been extracted,
opportunity
and the car
is
still
slamming
independent.
shut.
The window is
The gap between suspicion and proof is shrinking, and the time left to
The
do
right
the right
thing, but
thing,
as Savannah herself said,
mentioned,
has
has not
not yet
completely
passed.
evaporated yet. But time is finite. If you saw anything unusual in the foothills during January or February, if you know a person whose mood shifted around the 1st of February, or if you heard a rumor you weren't sure about,
If you heard something you are unsure whether to
reach
report,
out.
please call 1.
Call 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit your info at tips.fbi.gov.
That
The
line
phones are
is
manned.
stuffed.
The
That
money
reward
is ready.
is waiting.
And her family is
that
still
family
holding out hope.
is still.
Nancy Ellen Guthrie was born January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She lost her husband in 1988 when her kids were small,
when her children were
but
still
she never
young,
broke down.
and
She raised all 3 of her children right here in Tucson. She
faith
spent her life
and
focused on
family and
faith,
routine,
family, and her habits.
church on Sunday,
Mass on
family
Sundays,
dinner on
family meals on Saturdays, and an Uber to Annie's because she refused to be a burden.
She went
inside her home.
The garage door closed
The garage
at 9:50
door hit the
p.m.
floor at
and then
9:50
someone
p.m.
who knew
Then a predator who knew her routine and her home came through the dark and stole her from 84 years of life.
Took
She
her
is
from a
worth
life she
every
had spent
single
84
question this
years
video
building.
has brought
She deserves
to light.
every-
She's worth every bit of effort we've dedicated here. Locating
She
her
deserves
is
to be
vital,
found, and
and
she
the
deserves
specific
for the
individuals
person
out there
or people who
recognize her location must grasp that harboring a heavy secret is a burden no one carries forever.
they
If
can
these
hold
clips
forever.
clarified the mystery
If
for
this
you,
video
share the
added
link with one
something to
person
your understanding
right now.
of the-
A single post places this message
of
before
someone
someone
who
with a minor
might have
detail
a
they
piece of
previously
information they
dismissed
did
as
not
completely
know
unimportant. The investigation has reached a tense and uncertain turning point. Every clue uncovered inside Annie Guthrie's home has only deepened the mystery, not solved it. Detectives are now piecing together a timeline that feels increasingly deliberate, almost staged. The silence surrounding Nancy's disappearance grows heavier with each passing hour, leaving both investigators and the public on edge. Yet, there's a quiet determination in the air. Authorities believe the smallest overlooked detail could finally break the case open. Until then, the search continues, relentless, emotional, and driven by one haunting question. What really happened that night? Follow our updates and enable the notification bell for more.
The next video in the
episode
series
dives into
goes
the Federal
inside the
Bureau of
FBI
Investigation
surveillance timeline.
logs. Observe how January 11th and January 24th reveal when this plot actually started. Identify the
who
watchers
was watching
and show the
and
future
what it
path
means
of this
for where
active
investigation
inquiry.
goes.
This file remains warm. We aren't quitting. The legacy of Nancy Guthrie is
Not
ongoing.
finished.